So I wanted to make a video about intent naming as well because I think as a new Dialogflow developer, once you get the hang of how intents work, you quickly end up with a mess of intents and you don't know how to name them. And well, this is how I started, and I found some examples online like this as well. So just using names of the action, essentially in the imperative form. Um, but as you can see here, there's no real hierarchy visible, and you don't really know how those intents work together. So I'm gonna show you a very simple system that I came up with to name the intents to give a bit more structure and hierarchy, and also create shorter names in the process. So this is the same bot that I've used in some of my previous tutorials. It is essentially just a contact data gathering bot, you could name it. You can start hi, and then it's asking my name. Once the name is matched, I can enter my email address at mail.com. I'm making this up, it's not my real email address. So there's the one thing. And there's one particular thing here. If you enter a name that is not a Western style name, which is matched by the system.name entity, given name entity, which I've used in the get name intent, then there's another fallback intent get name catch-all, which uses system.any to match any name. And then, so here we go, system.any. And once this intent is called, then it's asking for confirmation, and then we have those two confirmation intents, which essentially just wait for the user to type yes or no. So I think there's a clear case here that we can bring a bit more structure into this. So let me just finish this interaction. hello@hello.net. Great. I'm gonna go back to making this a bit smaller so I can see the menu on the left. So first of all, this bot's responsibility is to gather contact data. So we already, given that we know that, I think we can name those a little bit more simple even. Why do we need the word get? Let's just call it name. And then because this uses the system.givenName entity, I'm going to call it name.default. And we have a second name matching intent, which uses system.any, which is used as a fallback essentially. I'm going to call it catch all because it catches all names. I don't want to call it fallback because then there's the danger to confuse it with fallback intents. This is not a fallback intent. And then we have email, get email, which I can just rename to email. And we have the welcome intent. Well, it's clear that it's an intent, so why do we need the word intent? It's just welcome. We also have the fallback intent, which doesn't need the word intent in it either. So I'm going to call it fallback.default in case we want to add some other fallbacks at a later point. This is the default. Or I could go and call it catch all because it essentially catches any unknown input. Let's use this one. So now this looks a bit easier and we can more easily see that these belong together. They are both recognizing the names, but they have a different twist to it. Default and catch-all. I could also call it name system to make more clear that it's using the system given name entity. but let's not do that right now. And then we have the confirm name intents, which should be grouped together ideally. And they are actually only needed and called whenever we go into the name catch-all branch of this conversation. So I don't want to just talk. Let's look at it once more. So if I type this slightly, well, not Western name, then it's going into name catch-all now, and the output context is then confirm name, and then we're calling these ones. And then there's an easy way to group follow-up intents here. If you click on add follow-up intent, and then there's already a pre-made version, yes. And I'm also going to create a pre-made version, no. And now we can either leave it like this in this dash format, or I kind of like to stick to my dot hierarchy here, so I'm gonna do this. And then the input context in this case is confirm name and also name catch-all follow-up, which is the one that the Dialogflow interface essentially created for us when we clicked create follow-up intent. And we can see that the parent intent, let me just save this. The parent intent name catch-all has this same as an output context. Actually, let's set the lifespan to 1. There's no real reason to have it 2, because if the user doesn't type yes right after we ask them to confirm, then it's only going to lead to chaos if some yes that the user types at a later point in the conversation matches this intent, because it's completely out of context. So now we have this, and I'm going to use the hierarchical naming here as well. And you can see the output context is here. And then you can take a look at these. I'm going to leave them right now, but maybe some of them don't really match what I was looking for. So I asked the user to confirm my name, so I don't really want this. No, I cannot. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but you can look at this at a later point. And then if the user types no, then we're just asking them to repeat their name in this case. Can you repeat your name? And we need the output context again, awaiting name. And then we essentially go up again in the hierarchy. So if the user goes into the no branch, then we set the output context awaiting name again, and then if they type their name again, maybe there was a typo, or maybe they can leave any extra words out and just write their pure name, and then we can again go into these intents here, name. Great. And if the user answers yes, we want to move the conversation along to the email next. So let's set awaiting email as an output context. And again, we can take a look here. Maybe we don't want any of these, some of these, but for now, that's okay. And then last thing here, thank you. I'm gonna use the name here, which should be coming through via the confirm name intent, and then I'm gonna prompt them for their email. Okay, this should do it. So essentially I just created 2 new intents to replace these because it's you can't really do it manually. You need to press this button so that Dialogflow generates the output context and input context, which connects parent and child intents, which is this one. And because I just created duplicate intents, I'm going to delete those two now. So, and now we see that everything looks a bit cleaner than in the beginning of the video. So we only see 5 intents here, and they're shorter. You can see that these belong together because they both start with name. I could create another thing like this with email if I wanted to. And then we have the follow-up intents nicely nested here because you don't really need to see them when you look at the bot and the intent list for the first time, because it's just an overwhelming amount of intents, and I think it makes more sense like this. But this is only one technique and personal opinion that I developed, so feel free to let me know what you think and have a discussion in the comments. Maybe you've come up with your own system. I'd be curious to hear about it. Great. See you in the next video.